This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Welcome to First Coast Connect. I'm Noah Hertz, in for Ann Schindler. On today's Friday News Roundtable, it's the biggest stories of the week. The nation's top prosecutor is fired following a contentious tenure marked by the release of files related to Jeffrey Epstein. Legal challenges are filed minutes after Florida's controversial SAVE Act is signed into law. The Jacksonville Transportation Authority furloughs senior staff and raises fares on disability services as it grapples with budget shortfalls, and the NFL pushes back on criticism from Florida's Attorney General over its diversity policy. We'll talk about all that and more with our panel of journalists on our Friday Week in Review. Later, from wildlife to daily life, a jet-setting conservationist tells stories through her photography. Join the conversation. You can reach us on air by calling 904-549-2937, or you can go to firstcoastconnect.org to find all the ways to connect with us. It's all ahead this hour after the day's news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi is out of her job. NPR's Ryan Lucas says President Trump announced the news yesterday.
In a post online, Trump called Bondi a great American patriot and loyal friend who oversaw what he called a massive crackdown on crime. But Bondi had come under bipartisan criticism for her handling of the files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. She's also been pressed by Trump to aggressively go after the president's perceived political enemies. And under Bondi's leadership, the Justice Department has investigated and even prosecuted some of Trump's critics. But those cases have foundered in court or before grand juries. Now Bondi is out, and Trump says Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, a former personal lawyer for Trump, will take over leading the department for now on an acting basis. Ryan Lucas, NPR News, Washington.
Iran continues to fire at neighboring countries, and it's damaged a desalination plant today in Kuwait. But Iran state media have confirmed one of its own desalination plants is still fully out of service. Iran says it was hit by an airstrike. NPR's Julia Simon reports experts say attacks on plants that create fresh water are increasingly becoming a weapon of war.
Desalination is the process of using electricity to separate seawater into a salty solution on one side and fresh water on the other. Across the Middle East, countries rely heavily on the process. Qatar and Bahrain get more than 90% of their drinking water from it. As climate change increases the severity of droughts, experts see desalination plants as a key adaptation tool. Since the recent war began, strikes have hit plants in Iran, as well as Kuwait and Bahrain. Earlier this week, President Trump wrote on social media that the U.S. may strike more Iranian desalination plants. Civilian infrastructure sites, like water plants, are banned as targets by international law. Julia Simon, NPR News.
The Pentagon and other defendants are appealing a federal judge's ruling that temporarily blocks a federal blacklist of the AI company Anthropic. NPR's John Ruwich reports there's a dispute over how the U.S. military can use AI.
Anthropic says it does not want its AI used for autonomous weapons or mass surveillance of Americans. The Pentagon says it's up to the military to decide how to use the technology, not the company. It labeled Anthropic a supply chain risk, and President Trump ordered federal agencies to stop using its products. A federal judge in San Francisco last week ordered a preliminary injunction against the moves. She said the measures do not appear directed at the government's stated national security interests and instead look like punishment. The Pentagon and other defendants argued in court that Anthropic's actions rendered it untrustworthy. John Ruwich, NPR News.
Wall Street is closed today. This is for the Christian observance of Good Friday. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Good morning. You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. I'm Stephen Ponson. It is 9:04. A hotel and convention center could soon rise on the property of the former Duval County Courthouse in downtown Jacksonville. Jacksonville-based Corner Lot and an investment partner are proposing to build a $160 million structure on a portion of Ford on Bay on East Bay Street, that according to news partners at the Jacksonville Daily Record. The proposal includes a 14-story tower with a hotel and conference center, restaurant and retail space facing East Bay Street, and office space. Caribbean king crabs raised in a hatchery have been released onto Florida's coral reef for the first time. Jessica Mazzaros reports it's part of an effort to restore the massive underwater ecosystem.
Florida's coral reef has been in decline for 75 years. Jason Spadaro with Moat Marine Laboratory says that's due to overfishing, coral diseases, water quality, and extreme weather.
Increasing CO2 in our atmosphere has led to an increased incidence and magnitude of things like heat waves, hurricanes.
Moat scientists are now releasing Caribbean king crabs onto the reef because they eat algae, which would otherwise block the needed sunlight.
It eats algae that are chemically defended or calcified, so things that other herbivores avoid. And thus, those algae become very difficult to control on the reef.
Removing overgrown algae will give the corals space to grow and settle. Moat plans to deploy more crabs later this month. I'm Jessica Mazzaros in Tampa.
It's 72 degrees in downtown Jacksonville with mostly cloudy skies.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Lilly Endowment, a private foundation supporting NPR's coverage of religion and spirituality, and Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Opinions expressed on the First Coast Connect Week in Review are those of our panelists and do not reflect the views of WJCT News 89.9.
Good morning. I'm Noah Hertz in for Ann Schindler, and welcome to First Coast Connect. It's Friday, which means it's time for our First Coast Week in Review. Among our topics, Pam Bondi is out as the country's top prosecutor after a contentious tenure that oversaw the partial release of the Epstein files. Florida's so-called SAVE Act is challenged within minutes of becoming law. JTA furloughs senior staff while increasing fares for services for people with disabilities amid budget shortfalls. And the NFL responds to criticism by Florida's Attorney General about a diversity policy. To talk about all that and more, I am joined this morning by Will Brown, reporter at Jacksonville Today. Good morning, Will.
Good morning. Good morning.
Nikisha Williams, former TV producer and author of The Seven Daughters of Dupree. Good morning.
Good morning.
Frank Powers, former assignment manager at News4Jax. Good morning, Frank.
I was happy where I was. Good to be here on a Good Friday.
And Jack Webb, attorney and former city council president. Morning, Jack.
Good morning.
So we're going to start this morning by talking about Attorney General Pam Bondi, now former Attorney General. She's officially been removed from her post before serving in the White House. I'm sure you guys and all of our listeners will remember Bondi was Florida's Attorney General. For now, she is set to be replaced by Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Jack, what do we know about what prompted this move by the president to remove Bondi?
Just frustration, I guess. I mean, you work for, needless to say, well, let me start it with this. In her mind, she's working for an impossible client. That is Donald Trump. No matter what you do, you cannot please a difficult client, as is President Trump. Therein lies the problem, where Bondi, and this will mark her tenure, her history as the U.S. Attorney General, that there was a basic misapprehension of what her responsibility was as a lawyer, as a U.S. Attorney General. She does not represent the president. Period. End of story. She swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. She works for the Constitution. She works for the United States of America. So her efforts as the Attorney General to effectively to circumvent the rule of law in this country will mark her tenure. Now, why did he get her out? Because she probably wouldn't go far enough for him, would he? Would she? You know, I find it really interesting that she will be compelled to testify before Congress. This may be an opportunity for her to come clean. We'll see.
It seems like they're at least publicly, there's not a ton of bad blood between them. President Trump, in a Truth Social post, called Bondi a great American patriot and a loyal friend yesterday. Frank, what do we know about the acting Attorney General and how long he's potentially going to be there?
Well, last we saw Todd Blanche, he was unsuccessfully defending Mr. Trump in his fraud case in New York State. So you got to wonder how far he's willing to go. I mean, the rumblings about Bondi started really when Susie Wiles told Vanity Fair that she whiffed on Epstein.
Mhm.
And that, the Epstein, the constant drip, drip, drip. And then she also ran off thousands of FBI agents and career Justice Department officials who knew what they were doing. They just weren't going to do it the way that the president wanted. So then they bring in hacks like Lindsay Halligan, who broke so many rules in getting indictments of Comey and Letitia James that it was derisively laughed out of court. And you got Jeanine Pirro. Jack, you've heard this phrase. Any good prosecutor could indict a ham sandwich. Jeanine Pirro
couldn't get that done.
couldn't get someone indicted for throwing a ham sandwich at a police officer.
I have to laugh. Go ahead,
Ham's going
Will.
to be very available this weekend for those who are celebrating.
What has Bondi's response been to all of this? I mean, has she announced a future going forward? Will, I know you were getting up to date on all this morning.
She said she's going into a great opportunity in the private sector that she has yet to divulge. If she wants to go into the private sector, that is more than her prerogative. But I don't know a lot of friends that would just publicly fire me and shame me the way that Attorney General Bondi was. So for the president to claim, oh, she's a great friend, I'm like, man,
I'd hate to meet your enemies.
Exactly. So for me,
that lady don't have no job. Y'all know that lady don't have no job. I don't know why we're pretending.
Well,
she's going into a great opportunity into the private sector, the same private sector that hemorrhaged 600,000 jobs last year.
Well, I'm glad you said that because
at the behest of the president and the attorney general, that lady don't have no job.
Well, she was the former attorney general of Florida. I mean, do you think she has any future in Florida politics?
No.
Can I speak to that?
Please.
Let's bring it back to Florida for a moment. Frank and I were talking before we went on the air. While she was the U.S. Attorney General, there were at least 2 or 3 ethics complaints filed with the Florida Bar Association against her. The Florida Supreme Court punted on them and said, listen, the bar punted and said, listen, we're not going to investigate a sitting U.S. Attorney General. The Florida Supreme Court backed them up, whatever. Now, she's no longer the U.S. Attorney General, so it's now... There's a lot of bad stuff that happened between 2025 and 2026. So I would anticipate that some of these groups that filed these complaints in the first place are going to dust them off and bring some new ones. And so I don't wish her ill will. But I will say, as I told Frank, remember Rudy Giuliani? I mean, Rudy he did some stupid stuff, and I think he's been permanently disbarred in New York now. So, yeah, good luck.
Everybody from the first Trump administration had something happen to them, whether they came in and testified or wrote books about how they wish they would be forgiven their sins of serving a tyrant the first time around and all the things that they overlooked. All of them have been in some way disgraced and ashamed. And here we go with Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem 1 year into this ridiculous administration. She don't have no job.
I think there was a lot of speculation going into the second Trump administration that it might be less of a revolving door than the first Trump administration
I don't know why
was.
people thought that.
But, I mean, to that point, we were talking about Todd Blanche being the interim. There's been some rumblings that the head of the EPA, Lee Zeldin, may take over as the new attorney general. Have you heard anything about that, Frank? I mean, what do we know about Lee Zeldin?
There was speculation that he was going to be the pick. Now, interesting that at least for now, he has not said yes. And he knows what the expectations are. As Jack mentioned, Bondi didn't go far enough to obtain basically illegal charges against Trump's political foes. So he knows that's the bar that he would have to meet to successfully be the next attorney general.
Well, Jack, to that, what more could Bondi have done? It seems like up to this point she had been a staunch ally of President Trump. I know there was rumblings. I was reading an article in Semaphore yesterday that talked about how the president's or the legal department was going to investigate California Democratic Rep Eric Swalwell, and there's rumblings that Bondi might have tipped him off that was going to happen. But
Right.
what more could Bondi have done?
Well, I don't know if there's any more she could have done, quite honestly. With the whole Epstein thing, I think that she was in over her head on day one. So when she said all the files are on my desk, clearly she didn't know what she was talking about.
Mhm.
And probably what happened as she went along is like, oh, we got some really bad stuff here. And she's trying, it's a slow drip, it's a slow drip, it's a slow drip. And Trump wants to make it go away, so it can't go away. It's not going to go away.
I'm sorry, we're not going to forget child pedophilia.
That's exactly
we're
right.
not going to forget about
We're not
that.
going to forget about it. And there are some Republicans who would agree with you, thank God. So it will not go away. But why couldn't she do more? Well, I mean, first of all, she, as Frank said, she ran off a lot of good, competent people. The good, competent people wouldn't do what she wanted to do in the first place, and then she's left with a staff. Right? What do? One of the issues that's raised in one of the bar complaints is that she called for zealous advocacy without ethical restraint. That's one of the issues. Okay, so it could well be that some of these people working for Bondi say, "Hey, I ain't doing this. I'm not going there." It could be that she could not. She could not muster the troops to do what she would want to do as Donald Trump's surrogate acting as the U.S. Attorney General. I don't know.
If you're just joining us, we are talking to Frank Powers, Jack Webb, Nikisha Williams, and Will Brown about the week's headlines. You can join the conversation on air by calling 904-549-2937 or go to firstcoastconnect.org to find all the ways you can connect with us. I want to move on to our next topic. We are talking about a new election law that was just signed in Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis signed into law a Florida version of a similar legislative proposal at the federal level known as the SAVE Act. He says the new law will protect the integrity of our elections, but it only took a couple of minutes after he signed it for it to be challenged by voting rights organizations. Will, can you tell us a little bit about what this bill is and what changes it makes to election law?
Among the things that this law would do, it would no longer allow someone with a student ID to be able to use that as voter identification. Among the other things that it would do is it raises the barrier for, they want people to be fully United States citizens. I think they have to provide a passport or driver's license to be able to vote. Neither here nor there. I did want to first go back to the whole acronym in the first place. It's completely dehumanizing language. SAVE stands for Systemic Alien Verification for Entitlements. Since when are people aliens? Like, let's start there. So also, and I wanted to state, like, the Deputy Secretary of State in the state of Florida wrote to the governor and the legislature, this state makes it easy to register and to vote, but makes it hard to cheat. That was in a January 2025 report. Well before this bill was filed in the legislature. So it's important to realize that Florida has had election security for years, and almost every year that the legislature meets, it's one thing that they're able to do on time is actually pass voter registration laws. They can't pass a budget, but they can pass these laws.
In Florida, even with those laws, Florida has been at the center of voter controversy since 1876.
Well, yes. Yes, that's why Rutherford Hayes became president and how Reconstruction ended. That is 100% completely accurate.
Florida, right in the center of it.
In 1876.
So what are these laws really doing?
Why am I not surprised?
Louisiana and South Carolina, I think, were the other states in 1876 that were part of that election.
The Hayes bargain, yes.
Yes. So, but to Nikisha's point, there it is. The critics will say it will raise the barrier for participating in Florida elections.
One thing before we move on here, Will, I just want to point out the producers went and double checked, and SAVE stands for the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or what's up?
That's the federal.
Is that the federal one?
The federal
okay,
name.
at the state level, it's different. I just want to make sure we get that 100% correct because it's tricky talking about this because a similar thing is going through at the federal level. But
I think that's the entire point, though.
Yeah.
Have you noticed? And I feel like I say this every time I come. Every time there's like a controversial federal version, we get the Florida version right after it.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Nikisha, too, especially, there's been like Will said, some opponents of this have said that this raises the bar too high, potentially, for people to register to vote. I know at the federal level, it's been criticized as being a poll tax. I mean, what do you see from a historic context? What does it look like here in the state?
Okay, so, and this is specifically when we're thinking about women who, especially once they get married. If you have to provide proof of citizenship and photo ID to go vote, they are asking for those pieces of identification to match. If my proof of citizenship, if I do not have a passport, my proof of citizenship is a birth certificate. First of all, where's my birth certificate? It's at my mother's house somewhere in Chicago. So I had to like go dig it up or call the Cook County Clerk of Court's office to get a copy of it. That's one. Then I have my photo ID. It has my married name, even though I am no longer married. Those two pieces of identification do not match. And so then I would not be eligible to vote unless I have a passport that has another matching name.
I see. Yeah.
I do have a passport. I have renewed my passport. Do you know how much that costs?
Yeah.
Exactly. That is a poll tax, and that is illegal.
Jack, go on ahead.
Yeah.
While I ask you a question.
What's really disconcerting this House Bill 991 is the retroactivity of it as well, and the ability, if you don't have the proper information, it's not verified through whatever systems or whatever that are in databases, which are inherently unreliable, you will be removed from the polls.
If they haven't been removing people from voter rolls for the last 10, 15 years.
But this is a major cleansing
Cause.
operation. This is a major, I don't want to call it, it's a scouring operation. But
I think cleansing was accurate.
Cleansing, okay, fair enough. It's interesting. They filed, I read the lawsuit that was filed immediately after, and it's a beautifully written complaint. It's a 60-page complaint, one count. Violation of First and 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, undue burden on voting rights. And, and the first thing I jumped out at me, all right, this law is going to go down because, again, what is the compelling government interest or whatever? What? Massive voter fraud? Show it to me. All right. Judge is going to be like, where is it? Okay. And it's got to be, the statute has to be narrowly tailored to address this compelling governmental interest. All right. So what is your narrowly tailored statute? You're going to do a cleansing operation of all voters in the state of Florida going forward? Don't think so. I don't think so. I think this is Ron DeSantis's audition for the U.S. Attorney General's role.
Well, to that point, I mean,
or another run for president.
Or maybe
during a
One
press
word for
conference,
that, Iowa.
During a press conference earlier this week, I know DeSantis was asked about it, and he said that it's kind of par for the course. He was expecting it would be challenged. He said that these things always get appealed. It'll go to the courts, and they will eventually win. Frank, Jack, I wanted to ask, I mean, what kind of track record does the governor have with being challenged? Because to my memory, I can think of several things that have passed the legislature, have been signed into law, and then through appeals have retroactively been changed.
Sure, including large portions of the Don't Say Gay law, or the Woke Act.
Yes.
But most of the time, the laws that get passed under DeSantis do stand muster. This one won't. And I mean, most people say, make sure that there is no illegal voting going on. All right, everybody can endorse that in general. But the amount of voter fraud that takes place is so rare as to be statistically non-existent. This is all performative. This is to get more headlines in Florida. I mean, how many times have we heard DeSantis over the years saying there's no better place to vote in terms of safeguards against fraud than in Florida? But yet they still keep passing these laws.
But the performance is the point.
Right.
The performance is absolutely the point, because by the time the bills get passed and they get appealed and they go to court and they have hearings and they go up the chain of the judicial system, the election will be here and the damage will be done. It's just like we're sitting at a PBS NPR affiliate.
Yeah.
It just was ruled last week that the clawing back of the money was unconstitutional and that you have to put it back, but the damage is already done.
Well,
so if you can disenfranchise voters now while elections are gearing up and then they have to follow whatever's happening, the damage is already done.
Well, it's interesting because that's why they filed the lawsuit immediately, because what they're not seeking, the only relief they're seeking is an injunction. Stop it now, and a declaratory judgment under federal law saying this is. It looks like this is going to be illegal, so we're going to grant the injunction.
Well, especially since the law will not go into effect if it does stand
until after the midterms.
Yeah, until after the midterms in January next year. But I can still imagine that there will be some confusion among people when they are potentially going to register to vote.
Home.
Yeah, it will.
And that is the point.
Jack, I know we've mentioned a couple of times the specifics of the lawsuit, but who filed this lawsuit? Can you share a little more information about the groups?
Yeah, it was the League of Women Voters and a couple other groups, but the lawyers who are representing these groups, ACLU.
Yes.
Yeah.
ACLU,
I think, out of Miami and New York. Yeah.
Well, this is definitely one that we're going to be following quite a bit here. I know that It's going to be interesting with the news here. We have a call here about it. We have Daryl from St. Augustine. Daryl, can you hear us?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to point out that maybe you should not expect much from the Florida Supreme Court, since virtually all of them are been appointed by DeSantis.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you for the call, Daryl.
The good news is, and this is in federal court.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're not in state court. If it was, but to your point, to the caller's point, if it were in state court, yeah, I'd immediately get it out of there. But,
well, to that point, yeah, Governor DeSantis has appointed the vast majority of the Supreme Court members in Florida too, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
7, I think, now.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next topic today, JTA. We're going to talk about the Local Transit Authority. JTA has a $142 million budget deficit, and they announced some plans this week to try and close that gap. First is they are planning to increase rates for the Connexion Plus service. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about the Connexion Plus service? Will, is this one that you're familiar with covering JTA?
Yes. So the Connexion Plus service has primarily been used by our neighbors who are differently abled for a sundry of reasons, and it is a personalized service where a JTA vehicle comes to where you are and takes you to where you need and want to go. The Plus service is more on demand than the typical Connexion service. And so Plus, you call them up and say, hey, I'd like to go hypothetically from WJCT Public Media in downtown to JTA headquarters in La Villa.
Or a doctor's appointment or something like that.
Or a doctor. Using
That's
place.
most of it.
Yes. And what JTA did earlier this year was raise the rate for that service. In the the first couple miles they kept the rate the same, but then as you went higher, then the rates got higher. And I think that listening to people speak at a JTA board meeting who use the Connexion service, I do not think JTA fully understood how many people rely on the service and just how fixed their incomes are. So for JTA to raise the rate really made it more difficult for people to get around a city where you cannot live comfortably or safely in Jacksonville.
You can't walk it.
Yeah, if you don't have
You need a
reliable
car.
transportation, you have to have a moving vehicle in this town.
Yeah, if the JTA is looking to close the budget gap of $145 million,
It's
off
14.2 million.
How much?
14.2.
14. I'm sorry, that's what. 14.2. Still, you're not going to do it on the backs of the disabled. But it begs a bigger question for me. It's like, all right, my understanding is, all right, you've got JTA, first of all, is a unique entity or organization or agency under the umbrella of consolidated government, because it's actually a creature of state statute.
Aren't they
but
all?
Yeah, well, that said, they get their money. They get their money. Some money from the sales tax, some money from the state, whatever. But the shortfall, from my understanding, is a result of a miscalculation or whatever readjustment of sales tax revenue projections. Okay, got that. Plus, my understanding is that FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, owes JTA money for capital projects that they have not yet been reimbursed for. Yeah. Now, I didn't go there, but
we have to get there. We have to get there.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah,
I was right over the plate, Frank. But my question is, though, all right, you got this money out the door, right? Where are the reserves? Okay, I guess. I don't know, and I'm not saying the reserves aren't there, but you're projecting your cash flows and on at least a quarterly basis, probably monthly basis, updating your projections. Where's the council auditor?
What is this bad math? Like, you expect, sales tax revenues came in $11 million lower than projected. Have we not been reading the room on the economy for the last year and a half?
That's my point.
Well, to Will's point too, I have some data here about ridership. It says in 2025, Connexion logged more than 284,000 trips. Connection Plus riders took just under 203,000 trips, and since its launch in 1971, it has increased fares only 5 times. The last one was in 2019. And like you said, Nikisha, with the economy being where it is, there definitely, I can imagine there being a sense that $6 to $10, people are going to feel that.
Yes, but it's also important to remember that across the country, public transit ridership has declined since the pandemic. And for the most part, public transit ridership has not reached pre-pandemic levels. I think the high point for public transit across the country was like 2014. That was the high water mark.
Yeah.
And it has declined since. And JTA has not been immune from those public transit declines. And, also, I find it interesting that, JTA does this great service in allowing middle and high school students to ride for free. But that is not the case in a lot of other areas. But one of the reasons why middle and high school students ride JTA for free is because, frankly, the school district reduced the options for school bus transportation. And so then it was kind of put on the backs of, well, these kids have to get to school some way, somehow. And JTA stepped up and filled the gap. But that's, and I want to say that's about 200,000 riders per year. Wow. It's not or 200,000 rides per year. That's not a large amount of ridership in the grand scheme of things. But every little bit helps when you're projecting shortfalls and seeing ridership decline.
It's interesting because the JTA has been a dumping ground for city needs over the years. I mean, because originally JTA was the Jacksonville Expressway Authority, and then when the private bus lines went bankrupt or whatever, JTA became the JTA because they got transit in addition to their road building mission. So this is just kind of more put it on them, put it on somebody else.
And if that trend continues that Will mentioned, I mean, look at this. What they had to do to meet this budget shortfall. They laid off 30 some odd people. They cut salaries for Nat Ford and top senior people there at JTA. They gave furloughs. Basically, a lot of people are getting a month off, unpaid. What's next? And meanwhile, Connection riders, most of them won't see an increase. I think they said 75% of those who use that, they only go 12 miles anyway. It's that 25% who go more than 12 miles that'll get that extra fee. Navi is sucking too much money out of the JTA budget. And what do? They say, all right, because no one is riding Navi, we'll make it free now. Well, to try to build up ridership. The inference being,
and there's still the Skyway.
Yeah. We will let you ride for free, get used to it, and then the fees come back.
Yeah.
Didn't news organizations learn the hard way in the 90s what happens when you let something out for free?
When you drop the paywall and then try to put it back up later.
And then you want to ask people for money after they are used to receiving a service for free?
Well, somebody mentioned to me recently about
like the Skyway?
like Nat Ford's salary, and I had to fact check this, but Nat Ford's salary as of a 2023 news article I saw was around $450,000, which is more money than the Chicago Transit Authority head makes. He makes only $391,000. So definitely is interesting to see kind of where the money does go, where the money is being spent in JTA on transit.
And it's not being reimbursed at either the state or the federal level.
Real quick here, I want to take a phone call from someone who does use the Connection service. Ebby, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, this is Ebby from West Side. What do you have to say?
Yeah, I was just letting the young lady know just now. I work near on Pearl Street. So if I leave here, and I have to be to work at 8:30. So if JTA Connection comes get me, most times I have to leave the house like an hour and a half early. And I have to go pick up 3 or 4 people sometimes, and I'm still sometimes late for work. However, now when I use Connection Plus, of course they come and pick me up at a scheduled time, right? Because I'll schedule it. They'll send Connection Plus when there are no drivers available. However, when I get to work, if I have to see clients, if I have to have 3 or 4 clients in that day, right now I'm paying $6 visit. So I schedule it one after the other so I can see all my clients and then come back to work. So say I have 4 clients, $24, right? And then I come back, that's $30. Now you're talking 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. That is not sustainable for me and anyone else. And now I'm forced to try to figure out, okay, how am I going to see my clients? I need a job. I got to pay my rent. I got to eat. So is it even it's not sustainable for me to try to see that many clients on, using users now. I Connexion Plus, I can't. And then, like I said, when JCA does come pick me up, I'm going to different places around town before I even get to work, and sometimes I'm late. Now, I understand that it's going up to 12 miles, at 10, for $10. But now you're forcing me to stay in the area. I won't be able to even go outside of the west side because if I cross that bridge, that's more than 15 miles. If I go further to the north side, that's more than 15 miles. So now I'm limited where I can even go to the store. I even go to another store, like the Asian stores or the Hispanic stores, because I got to stay in my area. I can only go to Winn-Dixie. I can only go to Walmart. Why? Because if I go any further out, it's going to only cost me $10. It's going to cost me actually $2 for anything outside of those 12 miles.
Thank you for providing that insight to the program, Abby. I do want to point out, too, that as an effort to try and maybe staunch the bleeding a little bit here and make things a little easier for people, JTA is rolling out $20 vouchers through Uber for up to 10 trips a week for qualified riders. Do we think that will make a difference for some people, or do we think ultimately this is still going to be felt?
This is the problem of government in the United States in general, in that it is built on the backs of impoverished, low-income, working-class people. And you continue to squeeze and try to bleed these people dry of everything that they have while you're giving tax breaks to the rich and the oligarchs of the country who have billions of dollars and billions in tax breaks and continue to increase their wealth ad nauseum while asking working-class, impoverished, low-income, and systematically disenfranchised people for more. We see it at the federal level, we see it at the state level, and we're now seeing it at the local level.
To Nikisha's point, there are so many people on the west side, northwest Jacksonville, North Jacksonville, who've never gone to the beach. And the reason is for lack of reliable transportation. Yeah. And it's not just the beach, but I talk to people at least a couple times a month, folks who are like, going from the west side to Arlington. That is a big expense if you don't have reliable transportation. And sometimes reliable transportation means a vehicle that has the transmission power to go over a bridge.
Mm-hmm. Plus Uber.
$20?
2 points. Uber, need an app, number one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
need a phone and a regular internet connection.
And Uber is largely unregulated.
Mm-hmm.
It's not largely. It is.
It is. Okay.
Unregulated.
It's not like a medallion taxi service that has an obligation under law to go into certain neighborhoods. Good luck getting an Uber in some of these neighborhoods where people need a ride.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are able to get an Uber, well, the price of the Uber from a place that is not as frequently visited by Uber drivers is going to eat up a lot of that $20 in the first place.
Yeah, it's not going to go far.
And Uber rates are going to go up because gas prices have gone up.
Yeah, and it'll cost you more if you're going to work or coming home from work because of prices there.
Surge pricing.
I know we're still talking about this, but I do want to move on because we got a couple more topics we want to hit. Next up, I want to talk about some initiatives from local schools that are trying to address student safety. This week in Duval County, the DCPS announced a new safety initiative to add new camera technology to more than 900 of their buses. Frank, what's the goal of this program? Do we see a need with this?
Anybody who drives around Jacksonville sees the need. It is infuriating how many times you see people, the school bus slows down, it goes from the yellow flashing lights to the red flashing lights, people are on the other side. I'm going the other direction. They don't stop.
Yeah.
I think the company that they hired to put these cameras on the bus, they
Bus Patrol.
they are servicing districts in 24 states. Trying to find the number here. The district reported in the news comments they had this week about these new cameras that in 2025 they had over 8,000 instances of illegal passing. So they're going to be fines. Remember the old fines you would with the red light cameras? You would get it there, but mistakes are made there. But the system will require a police officer for the district to review the tape and then assume that it's the right car, and they send out the fine. Now, mistakes happen. My wife, a few years ago, got a fine for a SunPass violation down in the Orlando area. It wasn't her. We got the mail thing that had a picture of the car. It wasn't her car.
Never seen that car in my life.
So I called the Turnpike Authority and said, how did we get this? I mean, you look at it, they pulled it up. They said, what's the fine number? And I called it up and said, this is my car, okay? It ain't that. And they said, "Oh yeah, we're sorry, Mr. Powers." So they took care of it. They never explained it though, how that could happen, but
Yeah.
it does happen.
Will, go on ahead.
There are so many people who wonder where our money goes to in Duval County Public Schools.
Mhm.
The fact that the school district has to pay something like this to try and keep children safe is not an indictment of the school district. It is an indictment of all of us as drivers.
Yeah,
I agree.
Because they should not have to do this. We as a community should love, respect, and appreciate children enough to not act a fool while behind the wheel of a car, especially when there's a school bus around.
Well, you know, I was driving back from Tampa yesterday, a deposition. I came the back roads coming up through Clay County, and I was on my way into Green Cove, and school bus, 2-lane road, school bus coming the other way. I was 2 cars behind, and flashing yellow lights come on, school bus, and whoop, the guy in front of me either didn't realize you got it's going to turn red. You got to stop. So yeah, I mean, people they ignore it, and it's a safety issue. And I think it's
because they don't care. People don't love and respect and have dignity for children. They don't see them as worthy of those respectful rights. People only care about where they have to go, what they have to do, and if the school bus is in the way, they're going to go around it.
Now, I know there has been some pushback on this from some people. I mean, between people like pointing out situations like yours, Frank, where maybe somebody gets a ticket where they shouldn't have. There was also a report by the Tributary last year that found that the company Bus Patrol that DCPS is working with has ties to a South Florida representative in the House of Representatives whose son works for the company and who lobbied really hard and received donations from them. But I mean, I don't know. There are complaints about it, but have you guys heard anything? Will, have you heard anything in the community about support for this?
I have not heard support for it or against it. But as someone who I'm the primary transportation provider for my elementary age child, I can tell you that when I'm around his school, I see people cruising.
Yeah.
And you know, he's in 5th grade now, so I'm less worried about him than I was. You know, I literally walk him up to the school, but there are little children who walk, and not just at his school, but at other elementary schools. I worry, and frankly, was today the 3rd. Earlier this week, there was a vigil at Ed White High School for a teenager who was struck and hit by a car. I think she was on the west side. Was she crossing Blanding? I think it was. Like, neither here nor there of where she was crossing. But the fact that a child lost their life, multiple children in Duval County have lost their lives behind getting hit by cars. I mean, children, their frontal lobe is not developed. They are in school for a reason, to learn how to be functioning adults. They don't know everything. So those of us who have the privilege of driving, so to answer your question, I have not heard.
But as a parent.
But as a parent who watches and engages with this all the time, I can tell you that there are people who cruise right by schools. And there are some non-WJCT words that I have said to myself when I see it happen.
Well, there's going to be an awareness campaign. It's already started. And for the month of April, if you get one of these notations from the district that you violated the school bus safety law, you get a warning. In May, the citations start to go out. That's when you start to get the pushback as people get it. But, you know, as Keisha said, drive safe. You know, when we all go through driving school, what do we hit about the brain over and over again? Drive defensively, know your surroundings, and just pay attention. But people don't. They're on the phone. They're fiddling with the dials. They got screens now, everything. It's just too much.
Is really what it is. They're on the phone.
Or in a hurry.
And it's not just Duval, too. I know there's an effort in St. Johns County. Some new crosswalk signals were added near Patriot Oaks Academy.
Right in front of the school.
There was an incident there recently, too, wasn't there?
Last month, a 12-year-old boy riding one of those low-riding motorbikes crossed right in front of a car. The driver was not at fault, and he didn't make it. There is a very touching memorial in front of the school. But now you have a crosswalk there with buttons, so pedestrians can push the button, and the lights will come on, flashing lights, that is. And I was there the other day to watch it, and people were slowing down. I will tell you, Longleaf Parkway, like so many in northern St. Johns County, people fly.
People drive very quickly through there.
Yeah, it's interesting because I would suggest that the county get a little bit more proactive. I mean, you've got 100,000 new houses down in that neck of the woods, so that's what 250,000 additional vehicles that are coming up and down Longleaf Parkway every day. It's very stressful. I hate going down there, but That said, yeah, slow down, people. Get off the phones. But yeah, it's I don't know what the answer is, to be honest with you. But like, aside from being proactive about having crosswalks and ensuring pedestrian safety.
I want to hear our last topic here before we have to wrap. Football has been in the news a lot this week. First, it's official. The Jaguars are moving to Orlando while Everbank is getting its facelift. Will, you laughed a little bit. Talk to us about this.
Florida's unelected Attorney General, who is up for re-election this year.
Election.
Excuse me, it's up for election
That's true.
this year.
He was not elected, yes.
Florida's unelected Attorney General. Maybe you all can provide his name.
Yes, Mr. James Othmeyer.
Yes. I mean, I know what it was, but
He just wasn't going to say it.
he wants the earned media of. He wrote a letter to the NFL commissioner decrying that the league's rule that makes it mandatory for teams to have applicants who are for head coaching positions from Black and Latino and brown backgrounds. They don't have to hire them. They just have to. They have to be in the applicant pool. He said that is against Florida's civil rights laws.
He called it blatant race and sex discrimination.
Now, let's be very clear about a few things. There are 32 coaches in the NFL. This letter was not sent while NFL head coaches were being hired. This was sent in March. If there's an NFL head coaching vacancy in March, someone did something very, very dumb, or tragically, someone lost their life. Those are usually the only reasons why an NFL head coach vacancy is around in March. He did not send this letter in January when people were being hired. It's also worth noting that the one team in the state of Florida that it was really addressed to was addressed to the Miami Dolphins and then copied to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Dolphins' last two head coaches, was a black man and then a biracial man. And both of them were fired. And their current head coach is a white man. Qualified, capable, not casting aspersions on his qualifications. But the Dolphins literally did what the unelected Attorney General wanted them to do, which was...
But he wasn't Attorney General when they did it.
Well, no, he was. He's...
The previous two coaches
were
fired.
Yes.
Othmeyer was not Attorney General
Yes,
then.
you're correct.
And people, and I love Roger Goodell's, response to Othmeyer is basically, bless his heart. The Rooney Rule is under fire for not going far enough. In the last cycle of hiring in the NFL, you had 10 coaching vacancies, all right? Not a single black was hired for those vacancies. And the Rooney Rule has expanded over the years. It's not just head coaches, but it's assistant coaches as well.
Defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators.
I can see Roger Goodell getting this letter and looking up and saying to his assistant or whoever else in the room, so who the hell is this?
There are 32
and it's like,
teams.
He's like,
there are
I can
5
see
black coaches. That is
Three.
There are 3? I thought there were 5 going into the 2026 season.
No, ma'am. There are 3.
There are 3?
3. D'Amico Ryans in Houston, Aaron Glenn with the New York Jets, and Todd Bowles with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, the Governor DeSantis is old enough to remember when the Buccaneers were equal opportunity terrible, regardless of who the head coach was, black, white, or whatever. They were horrible.
Well, leave it to the Attorney General. He managed to overshadow the news about the Jaguars
The
moving
guy's
to Orlando.
got anger
with this.
management problems. He does what he always does, and he fires off letters threatening lawsuits for people who don't cave into his worldview.
Is this the Disney lawsuit Chapter 2?
Well, the Jags are moving to Orlando. Maybe Disney was on his mind. I mean, it's going to be on the minds of a lot of people driving to Jaguars games. That's for certain.
Yeah, have you seen gas prices lately?
Yeah.
That's a 300-mile round trip. I will tell you that the Citrus Bowl is one of 3 bowls that are down at Orlando. Last year, starting prices for tickets to the Citrus Bowl was $100. Okay, last season, starting prices for tickets at Everbank was $50. So 2 years from now, season ticket holders, get ready for some serious sticker shock.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in the Orlando area. I think some Jacksonville people are going to be in for a rude awakening when they have to get on I-4 to get to a Jaguars game.
Ooh.
Nobody's doing
Forget that.
There'll be a seasonal switch in season ticket holders. A lot of people up here and I'm not driving down there, but you'll see a lot of people in the Orlando area say, "Ooh, season ticket holders." And there's some good games in 27.
Well, Orlando sure thinks so,
including
too.
Tampa.
Yeah,
Tampa Bay Buccaneers are scheduled to play the Jaguars as a home game in 2027.
Watch
That
that
place
be the
will
year.
be packed.
Watch that be the year the Jags win the Super Bowl.
You said it. Your lips to God's ears. I think we're going to have to leave it there. Frank Powers, Will Brown, Jack Webb, Nikisha Williams, thank you guys so much for being here this morning.
Happy New Year.
Thanks for having us.
Happy Easter.
Up
He
next,
is risen.
up next, a visual artist and marine scientist captures the beauty of South Africa in a new local exhibit.
Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. Accidents can happen when you least expect it. For decades, our attorneys have dug out the facts to help juries decide who's at fault.
More at TerrellHoganLaw.com. HCA Florida Healthcare and WJCT invite you to a free lunch and learn Wednesday, April 15th at WJCT Studios. Experts will discuss skin cancer, Alzheimer's and memory loss, and understanding pneumonia and its dangers. Registration at wjct.org/events.
The Jacksonville Symphony presents Puccini's Tosca on April 10th and 12th. Join us for a masterpiece production with lush orchestration, dramatic arias, and stunning 30-foot tall projections. Tickets and information at jacksymphony.org.
On the next, what's health got to do with it? Why rectal cancer rates are rising across the U.S., particularly in younger adults.
President Trump addresses the nation on the Iran war in a speech that gives no clear way out. On the next Friday News Roundup, gas prices pass $4 a gallon and the war puts new pressure on the U.S. jobs market. Also, the Supreme Court is skeptical of President Trump's birthright citizenship order, and Artemis II heads to the moon. Next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. A local artist's current exhibitions transport viewers to scenic places well beyond the First Coast. Here to tell us about it is visual artist Anna Tripp. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here today. For starters, can you just tell us a little bit about your art? You're a visual artist, which I know can mean a lot of different things. So what is your medium of choice?
So I'm a photographer. I really love wildlife, landscape, and documentary photography. But I've had my YouTube channel way longer than I was a photographer. So I also like to capture videos and nothing dramatic, like really just keeping it very cinematic and to the point, just capturing the raw beauty around us.
What got you involved in photography?
My mom's an artist, actually. So she's a local portrait, now sacred art artist. So she's a painter. And so pretty much I grew up with art. As a child, we would do workshops with her, learning different mediums in painting. And then that kind of just made me want to become, find my own medium.
That's really cool.
So I went and I really was interested in cameras, and I asked for a camera when I was like 6, and I ended up getting my dad's old Olympus digital.
That's awesome.
And started with that and filming, and eventually got into TV Pro at Paxton School for Advanced Studies and cinema. And that led me to using my little GoPro to also capture photos, and then boom, declared a photography minor at Jacksonville University.
That's really cool. So you've got photos and videos on display right now at the Southlight studio from your recent trip to South Africa. And then there's also some photos of yours on display at Chancho King, the Ecuadorian restaurant of a trip to Ecuador. But I'm curious, how do you approach photography and videography different from each other? I imagine that there is kind of a different thought process that goes into capturing each.
Well, I think the main thing is I'm just excited to see what's outside, right? Outside of my day-to-day life. And it's not even that I'm going that far out, because I'm Ecuadorian American. So really, like Ecuador specifically, I'm just visiting my family and trying to find a way to like explore more of my country that I haven't been able to. So really with my camera, it's like, how can I bring that experience not only to like online, but also to my family? And usually video is a really good way of being able to showcase like the sounds as well, because it makes it more like 4-dimensional, I'd say. So I mean, usually I'm just always with the both buttons, like the shutter and the recording button. But usually focusing on the ambient sounds.
You mentioned natural beauty too, and people who are watching our live stream on YouTube or Facebook are seeing some pictures from you. But you mentioned natural beauty. You're a marine biologist too, aren't you?
Yes, I have a degree in marine science.
How does that kind of influence the photography and videography you do?
Oh my gosh, I just love being able to be outside, and having that degree with marine science really led me to start capturing wildlife in Alaska when I went to Alaska back in 2021. And that's led me to work with the endangered Kemsrili sea turtle species. And that's just always, the work behind my field work with marine science has always been exciting to bring my camera along and just capture those moments that most people don't get to see. Not everyone's waking up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Or working with an endangered sea turtle species. So.
I mean, I have not been to Ecuador or South America or South Africa. I have a really good friend who is Ecuadorian as well. And I texted him when I was looking at your art, like, check out some of this stuff. And he mentioned the same thing about the natural beauty.
It's so beautiful.
I mean, either from your South Africa collection or your Quito collection, do you have a favorite photograph that really sticks out?
From South Africa, it has to be my Cape Town boys. Really, the entire scene from Clifton Beach was one of my favorite scenes, because we did not plan that at all. That trip in general was very low budget, and we did not have too much time. So when we just stumbled upon that beach, I was just mesmerized. I felt like I was part of their lives, and just really a viewer from their lives, because it was a Monday, and I'm like, shouldn't we all be in school doing homework? Like, what are we doing? But no, it's just seeing what they do after school was amazing, and just being part of the culture. We were even invited to play volleyball, and that's when I was almost getting hit by a volleyball, and I looked up and I see those boys standing on those massive boulders at the beach, and I'm like, this shot, I need to take this shot. This feels like the right moment. And so Cape Town Boys by far is my favorite.
That's really
that
cool.
collection.
Are there any particular photographers or videographers who inspire you when you're putting work together?
Definitely Alex Webb. He's got an amazing collection from Cuba, and I use his as an inspiration when I went to Cuba myself in 2019 for a internship. And then Sand Vox, he was my inspiration behind South Africa. He's from Tanzania, so really seeing how he just captures candid moments from his day-to-day lives in Africa is just amazing.
That's really cool. So for people who are just hearing this and aren't watching our live stream, what can people expect if they go to see your photos or videos at the South Lake Gallery or even at Chancho King too?
So everything is real. I do not Photoshop, so the scenes are raw, authentic, and very high contrast. I very much love that characteristic of documentary photography in my work specifically, to create my own, mood. And so high colors, there's nice colors, high contrast, good lighting. I love capturing natural light, especially sunrise and sunset. So a lot of the photos are taken during sunrise, sunset. And each photo has a video that goes with it as well. So it's just more of an immersive experience. And if you are able to read the title cards, it comes with the description of what I was feeling and seeing at that moment.
Very cool.
So it's an immersive experience.
Very cool. I hope people will go check it out, and I look forward to seeing more of your stuff in the area too. Since you're local here, I know you'll be around.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anna, thank you so much for joining us here today. That's our program. Thank you for listening, and thank you to everyone who called and emailed in. We encourage your feedback and suggestions, and you can submit either of those at firstcoastconnect.org. You can also find all of our past and current shows, and while you're there, you can sign up for the FCC newsletter, which gives you a sneak peek at upcoming guests and a chance to submit your questions early. Don't forget to listen to WJCT's What's Health Got to Do With It, Saturday at 4, when Dr. Joe Servin and his panel of medical experts discuss the biggest health headlines of the month, from sexually transmitted ringworm to the misuse of peptides. Wow. First Coast Connect is produced by Stacey Bennett, and our associate producer is Isabella Casapow. Our show is directed by Brady Corum, and our theme music is performed by Club de Belugas. I'm Noah Hertz, and you've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or BaptistJax.com. Clay Today is a multimedia publication offering Clay County residents information on news, sports, business, and community updates. More information and details at claytodayonline.com, Clay Today 904 on Instagram, and Clay Today Newspaper on Facebook.